But basically, this argument is false. We'll come to explain why it is false in a short while. Right? This basic reasoning. And it's not the way that we find in the Qur'an. Allah Azza wa Jal has affirmed His existence. We see that these kind of methods of affirming Allah's existence are philosophical, they are abstract, they involve things that the common person might not understand. They involve the use of definitions which are not agreed upon. And what happens is that something which would normally be very simple and straightforward, it becomes really long, deep, drawn out, subject to debate, and it doesn't really finish the matter in a simple, clear way. Right? You understand? This is different to what we find in the Qur'an. Everything in the Qur'an is the simplest, most powerful, most easy to understand form of evidence. Right? It's something that there's no wrangling, there's no ambiguity. It's simple, straightforward, and just absolutely powerful. Whereas when we look at, and this is actually something that you find generally about all of the sciences of the disbelievers and their philosophy, that basically it's just something that is so simple, it becomes so unnecessarily complicated and drawn out, right? And there's all sorts of definitions, and no one really knows what, each person's definition is different, and something that is very simple becomes just unnecessarily lengthy and detailed and complicated, right? So what we find in the Qur'an is very simple. There are numerous evidences for Allah's existence in the Qur'an. The first one is the famous ayah in Surah At-Tur, the famous passage, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. In this ayah, Allah says, were they created by nothing? Or are they themselves the creators, meaning of themselves? Or did they create the heavens and the earth? They have no certainty. So basically in this passage, there are only three, basically there are four possibilities altogether. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, were you created by nothing? Did nothing create you? Did you create yourself? Did you create the heavens and the earth? Right? Now here are three self-evident truths, meaning these are things that you don't need to do experiments to know that they are true. Right? You were not created by nothing. You did not create yourself. Every man knows this. Right? You did not create the heavens and the earth. Every man knows this. Right? So the only option left available is that someone created you and the heavens and the earth. Now what is this thing? What is this being? Right? And so this, so here we can at least establish this being, that, this is a creator. Right? So this is very simple because it basically brings together all the possibilities. There's no other possibility. Right? You can either say, basically it's either self-creation or it's someone creating. And self-creation is a logical impossibility. Right? But really, when you look at all the detailed complex sciences and the way they deceive you, if you basically reduce it down and put it in a nutshell, what is it you're trying to say? That's really what they're trying to say. Right? The universe created itself. Right? But the way they present it is in such a complex, detailed way that a person becomes baffled that they can't really say in a nutshell, what are you really trying to say? That's what they basically, they hide it. Right? So if you imagine a cone that is turned upside down and it goes like this, right? Right at the bottom is the pinpoint, the simple thing that everything rests upon, right? But as you move further out, it becomes wider and wider and broader. Then all of this becomes just complex. It becomes more complicated philosophically and the use of scientific language and whatever else. But when you come right down to the crux of it and you say, well, what is the real assumption that you're working to here? And the assumption is, well, actually nothing can create something. Right? And so that's how it's really working. So anyway, this is one method of argument. Another method that we see in the Qur'an is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He basically asks mankind about some of the things that they see around them. For example, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, نَحْنُ خَلَقَنَاكُمْ فَلَوْلَا تُصَدِّقُونَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تُمْنُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَخْلُقُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, we created you. Why then will you not believe? Do you not see what you emit? Meaning the seminal fluid, the fluid. Did you create it, or are we its creators? Right. So, now obviously here we know that the semen, well the sperm in fact, contains basically the program of life. Right. So the question here is, did you create that or did we create it? And so this is a rhetorical question. Man knows he did not create that. He knows he didn't create it. And he knows what it involves of the complex, the creation, the programming of everything, the embryo, everything, what it results. Right? That's one thing. Then, a little later in the same surah, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تَحْرُثُونَ. Do you not see that which you plant? Basically the seed? أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ الزَّارِعُونَ. Are you the ones who planted it? أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ الزَّارِعُونَ. Or are we the ones who basically planted it? I'm speaking here about the seed and the whole process of the seed being nourished by the soil, the water, the air, and the seed splitting and then growing. And again, this is programming. Again, the seed is programmed. Right? You have different seeds, all nourished by the same nutrients and the same water and the same air, but leading to something completely different. This one produces these flowers and these fruits, and that one produces different flowers and different fruits, and that's this is amazing. That one same seed acted upon by all the same elements, but within it is a programming that is different each time. Are you the ones who did that, or are we the ones who basically planted it, and so on and so forth? And man knows he did not do that. And man knows that is planted and programmed or whatever else. Then he continues a few verses later. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ أَنزَلْتُمُوهُ مِنَ الْمُزْنِ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْمُنزِلِينَ. Do you not see the water that you drink? Are you the ones who made it descend from the clouds? Or are we the ones who made it to descend? Again, the water, same thing. And finally, afterwards, in a few verses later, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ النَّارَ الَّتِي تُورُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ أَنْشَأْتُمْ شَجَرَتَهَا أَمْ نَحْنُ الْمُنْشِئُونَ. Do you not see the fire that you basically kindle and burn? Are you the ones who originated the tree which provides the branches for which to create the fire, generate the fire? Or are we the ones who originated it? Right? So again, an allusion to the trees and what comes out of it, of the fuel for the fire, and so on and so forth. Now obviously these verses here are pointing to a man to just reflect upon himself, his weakness, his inability, that everything around him is subjected for his use. This is something that is so obvious to everybody, that everything around you, the sun, the moon, the trees, the water, the seeds, right? Everything is subjected for you. This is obvious. No one can deny it except someone who is arrogant. And so this in itself is clear that this has been subjected for your use, and therefore there is one who subjected it for your use, and He is Allah Azza wa Jal, the Creator. And so when we look at these, even the issue of the semen or the sperm, something that is so lowly, yet within it is the secret to life. Something that we would look down upon and despise and consider to be lowly, right? Because it's something emitted. But within it is the secret to life. So man's origin is from something lowly. So when you reflect upon all this, you see how this lowly thing, within it is the secret to the life of man. So the point being here that from these verses, this brings us to a famous line of poetry in which the poet said, وَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَهُ آيَةٌ تدل على أنه الواحد. That in every single thing there is a sign which indicates that He is the one. So, these are just some of the approaches in the Qur'an, which are sound, rational, simple approaches. You can see the simplicity, the rationality, and no one can really deny the self-evident truths, right? Pay attention to this. In the Qur'an, we see ayat and bayyinat and barahin, right? Ayat meaning signs that you can see. The ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal. You see the sun, you see the moon, you see the ship sailing on the sea, you see the animals from which you take the milk. These are ayat. You see them. And they're lightning and everything else. Then there are bayyinat. Bayyinat. A bayyina. What is the bayyina? A bayyina is something that is just self-evident. It doesn't need you to be an intelligent. This is something that you just know. It is the truth. It is a bayyina. It is a self-evident truth. Right? So in the Qur'an there are bayyinat, there are ayat. These are the simplest ways of basically arguing. So these people, they abandoned all of this and they took the approach of the philosophers, the disbelievers, right, who were the most misguided of people. They claim that they are objective. They claim that the power of reason, the rationale, that it's objective, that it's basically unbiased. And this is nonsense. This is nonsense. Because even today when you look at the philosophy of science and the famous people, Thomas Kuhn, and there's other people who wrote who are recognized to be the experts in this field. When they speak about science and the scientific method and can it be unbiased, or is there always ideology involved? Even in the field of mathematics there are discussions about this as well. That so when you get down to the nitty-gritty in these areas, you find that they are admitting that basically that even the scientific apparatus has to involve ideology before you even perform it, right? That there have to be assumptions, untested assumptions, unproven assumptions, right, in building the hypotheses and the theories and whatever else, right? So, so these people, the Jahmiyyah, the Mu'tazila, they basically borrowed the approach of the philosophers in studying what they call the natural world. Then they took that approach and then they tried to speak about that which is unseen. Allah Azza wa Jal, His names, His attributes, right? And as a result of that, basically, what they did was that they basically, what they did was they allowed the philosophers and the atheists to attack weak arguments, because these are weak arguments. Right? And this wrangling and debating went on for 3, 4, 5 centuries. Right? Because they got entangled in these fruitless debates. Right? They basically allowed these philosophers and atheists to view Islam as something that's, has very weak and poor arguments. Right? And eventually these people themselves, when you go 3, 4 centuries later, they become utterly confused, like Al-Ghazali, Al-Razi, right? As is mentioned by some of them, right? They became really confused. Even Shahrastani, these are Ash'ari scholars, and they began, because this proof that they were using, if you follow it logically and rationally all the way through,